Hi everyone, I'm Karina Kilmore. I'm a debut fiction writer. I've been a journalist for 25 something years, a daily finance journalist working mainly in newspapers. I'm in Melbourne at the moment. We're in level 3 lockdown and we've had this for about 5 or 6 weeks. And I know New Zealand's recently gone to level 3, so you'll be thinking it's great, a few more shops open and get takeaway food and things like that, but we're still on the same road as we have been. So looking forward to some relaxing of restrictions when it's safe. My book is Where the Truth Lies. It's about a journalist and a journalist who was based in New Zealand and was transferred to Melbourne, which is where my story comes in. That's what happened to me. The rest of it, I have to say, is fiction. There may be a few people who can recognise themselves, but I'm not disclosing any names. I thought I would read two pieces from the work today. One sets the scene about a newsroom, and even after all this time working on a newsroom, I still get the same rush every time I go on the floor. It's something that I hope will never leave me. So I'll just give you a little taste of that, what it's like to walk onto the newsroom. My main character is Chrissy O'Brien, and she's the person who's walking onto the newsroom in the story. Chrissy felt the rush of adrenaline each time she arrived on the newsroom floor, but mornings were her favourite. Not knowing what lay ahead each day was one of the best parts of the job. The mornings always crackled with promise of a new story, another chance. The Argus newsroom was a huge grey space. Desks, filing cabinets, sofas and broken office chairs spread haphazardly. Bits of dusty paper hung from ceiling ducts in attempts to modify the failing air conditioning. Windows were blocked by slimline Venetian blinds set at odd angles, their cords tangled and locked in place long ago. Even the daily conference room, the once lavish inner sanctum with its closed-door debates and whispered confidential sources, was now just a large bench in the middle of the floor. No privacy. Everyone forced to stand to make sure they didn't linger. By late morning, the floor was alive. Phones rang, televisions danced and flickered, computers cranked up, emails checked. The smell of coffee overpowered the permanent stale smell of the old place. The historic corner building on Elizabeth Street had long seen better days, but it had been home to the paper since the 1920s. The Chicago-esque architecture was a crazy rich mix of history styles, and like its occupants and the newspaper's fortunes over its 180 years. O'Brien, today's Chief of Staff, Sam, stopped briefly mid-stride as Chrissy cleared a spot on her crowded desk. Small and pointy, Sam was whippet-like, constantly racing around the newsroom, corralling reporters and feeding storylines. So that's how Chrissy goes to work every day. She goes onto the newsroom floor of the Argus newspaper. The Argus was a newspaper in Australia. It would have been 180 years old if it had kept going, but it closed down about 60, 70 years ago. But in Melbourne, in the CBD, the Argus building still exists. It's a beautiful corner building with the corner steps leading up to it and a little turret on the top. It's a gorgeous building, and I really wanted to repopulate that building with journalists, and so I did that in my fiction. Now the next piece is about the wharf. And the wharf has a big connection to me and my family. I come from a family of truckies and wharfies and unionists. And this is Chrissy, this is at the start of the book, and this is Chrissy down at the wharfs investigating a story. Gulls screamed and wheeled, diving around the towering metal cranes that stood as a silent guard between the land and the sea. Tall and proud, they stretched almost through the blanket of grey that hid the morning sky. The cranes' splayed feet set solid, crucified by rusty bolts and rails to the concrete wharves. The rain had stopped, but droplets still hung from the wire security fences. A glitter of water shook loose with each gust of wind. Chrissy pulled her jacket tight, not just from the cold, but also to cushion the memory. Childhood, her grandfather, the rumble of trucks vibrating through her feet, the constant whistles and sirens of caution, the shouts and cheers of working men. It was the same in every port. The picket in front of the gate had been going all night. Portable generators chugged, tent canopies were tightened, digital signboards reprogrammed with new messages. Safety first, people not profits. There are about 40 men, some with drooping banners held loosely in tied hands, others with slogans stretched tight across t-shirts on strong chests and pot bellies alike. Chrissy had been there for about an hour, still and unnoticed, off to the side, leaning against a car. She could see the anger as she watched the men. It wafted off them like steam. Finally she stood straight, took a slow deep breath, clenched her jaw and stepped into their midst. They quickly jostled around. A hand pulled on her shoulder from behind and spun her around. "You're with that right-wing lot, that fake news brigade," he said as he yanked on her media ID, outrage in his eyes, spittle in her face. Another tapped her notebook so hard it almost fell to the damp gravel, but her fingers kept a tight grasp on the spiral-bound pages. It was her red cross of neutrality, her shield. "How you go to twist this one then?" the big mouth added. Chrissy pulled the notebook to her chest and took a step back, then lifted her face to them. "Why haven't you been down here before?" A new voice. "No celebrities or footy stars, that's why. Bloody workers don't rate. Just another story too boring for the likes of you." But it wasn't just another story. The wharves had once been part of Chrissy's life, her old life. She had been following the snippets of information about the picket from a distance. It was not her round. It was not anyone's round. The Argus had other priorities, but like these men, she knew that change would be their loss. Ghost ships already roamed the oceans, automated ships with just a handful of crew. Ghost wharves were next. Chrissy stood her ground among the men and did her job. She listened. Centuries of shared tradition between men and ships were at an end. The wharf was being automated. Men were no longer needed. The media too, she knew, faced a godless future. Algorithms dictated assignments. Traditional news judgment, now optional. I hope you enjoyed my reading. And the book is called Where the Truth Lies, as you can see from here's one I prepared earlier. Thanks very much. I hope to see you soon. I was booked to tour New Zealand later this year, and that's been cancelled, but hopefully soon Australia and New Zealand travel restrictions might ease, and hopefully I'll be home soon. Thank you. Bye.